I was asking the Lord, he kind of gave me something he wanted me to talk about. And he's like, I was like, but how do I talk about it? And he spoke to me. He said, Laverne. And I was like, Laverne? And I was like, that's kind of bizarre. And I thought, okay, well, I lived in Laverne in California. And then I remembered a story that happened to me in Laverne that fits completely with what I'm saying. It was so crazy. I was like, I completely forgot about this story. I don't know how I could forget, but it was like, it's such a neat story. So I worked at a halfway house. And when I worked at this halfway house, I would be there 24/7, 7 days a week, right? So it was like constantly doing stuff, constantly there, constantly just there. And then all of a sudden, I left the halfway house and I went to this city in Laverne where my buddy lived. And this is around 2009. And so I would go to this university all the time because I lived with this guy's parents. They were retired and they asked me if I would stay with them, and they had extra room, and so I stayed with them. And I was really kind of trying to recover from what had happened to me. It was like a very traumatic time. If you ever experienced burnout or religious burnout, any kind of burnout that you can imagine, I was going through that. And I was trying to find myself again. And and so I'd always go to this school in Laverne there. It's called I think University of Laverne or something like that. It was a nice school. And so I would be at this school and I stayed there for like 2 months, and I would go into the classrooms and I would pray and I would read because the students in the morning they were there, but later on in the afternoon there were nobody there, and I could really, it was just like nobody around ever. And plus I looked like a student anyway. No one knew the difference. And so I was just always there. And then the Lord spoke to me. I'd been there a few months and I was feeling pretty good, and I felt like the Lord was telling me to move in a different direction. And and so I thought to myself, wow, this is really going good for me. And I don't know if that's the Lord, because we always struggle with that, right? We always struggle with what we believe is the Lord and what we don't believe is the Lord. And we kind of have this battle sometimes in our mind. And we probably stepped out in things that we thought were the Lord and maybe they weren't, or we stepped out in something that was the Lord and it didn't meet our expectation, right? And that's why what happens a lot of times, right? We think we're doing something. Like my buddy, he's leaving everything and him and his family are moving to Brazil. He's super excited. And I told him, I said, and he's just saying how great everything's going to be. And I just encouraged him. I said, you're going out there for some reason that you think, but it's not going to be what you think. So just know that God has a purpose for all this, but it's not going to be anything that you think. And of course, I know he can't receive that right now because he's so excited. But God's going to do some great things in him. But first, God's going to have to do a few other things. That's just my opinion, of course. And so I was just like, I just kind of dismissed it. I kind of swept it under the rug that God had spoke this to me, and that I was like, well, maybe it's not the Lord, and I'll just kind of keep hanging out because things are going the way, pretty good here, and I just kind of just going to stay here. And so I stayed there, and about a week passed. Didn't think about anything more about that word that I'd gotten, and then all of a sudden I was in one of the rooms. I didn't have anything on me. That was the time I didn't even have a cell phone. I didn't even own a cell phone at the time. Like I said, I just got out of the halfway house. I was getting reacclimated into society, and so I was in one of the classrooms, and all of a sudden I'm there, and I'm just kind of, I think I was even laying down on a table, like a classroom table. They had like two to a seat, and I was just laying down there, my back in the air, and all of a sudden a security officer comes in. Now, security officers I never see nobody come in there ever. But here I am, and I kind of got up, and And the guy's looking at me crazy, which he should have, like what's going on? And he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I'm just in here hanging out." And he goes, "Doing what?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just hanging out." And he goes, "Well, are you a student here?" And I was like, "No, I'm not a student." And he goes, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, I was just hanging out." I didn't want to tell him I was praying. I don't know why. I just thought that would be like no one would believe that. And so he said, "Hey, can you come with me for a second?" I was like, "Yeah." So he sits me down. "Hey, I'm just going to talk to a few people here real quick, and can you just sit right here?" And it was about 45 seconds later, and he was talking to some faculty, and he made a call. And the next thing I know, I see a police officer walk in. And then I see the police officer walk in. Then I look, and I see another police officer walk in. The next thing I know they are 5 police officers surrounding me as I'm sitting there. And they're just looking at me and they're searching around. And the security guard who had caught me in that room, he was still talking to, and he started talking to the police officers that had just come in. And he talked to police officers, and they'd look over at me. And I'm just thinking, okay, probably nothing's going to happen. And all of a sudden, one of the police officers come over to me. He says, "Hey, man, you need to be real clear with us. Why were you in that classroom if you're not a student here?" And I said, "Man, to be honest with you," I said, "I was in there praying." And as I said it, I did not believe it. I didn't believe it myself. I was like, there's no way this guy's going to believe what I'm saying. He goes, "You were in there praying? Well, why weren't you at a church? Why would you be at this university praying? Why wouldn't you be at a church or somewhere else?" I said, "I don't know. I just liked it here, I guess." And this is where I was at. And he gets up and he goes and he's talking to everybody. They're going in the classroom. They're looking for stuff. And then all of a sudden another police officer comes over, said, "We're really alarmed at what's happening right now. And we want you to know that there has been a lot of thefts in these classrooms. And you are our prime suspect in all these thefts in this classroom. And so we want you to know we're trying to figure out what to do with you right now." And he walked away, and I'm looking, but in my mind, I am praying. I am saying, "God, I am so sorry that I did not listen to you. You told me to move on, and I stayed. And I'm sorry, Lord. Please forgive me. If you can get me out of this jam," probably like not as severe, right? But Jonah in the fish's belly. I was praying that. I was saying, "Lord, just help me get out of this. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, Lord, but please help me get out of this." And so they come back and they said, "Okay, we want to go to your car. We want to look at your car." And they got my license, and I had a Hawaii license because I had lived in Hawaii a few years back, and I still had a Hawaii license. And we get to the car, and the guy looks and he says, "Well, you have Tennessee plates here. You live in Los Angeles, and you have a Hawaii driver's license. What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know. It seems kind of crazy, doesn't it?" And he goes, "Yeah, it does. What's your address that you live at here?" I said, "Man, I don't know." And he goes, "You don't know your own address?" He goes, "No, I'm just living." I said, "I'm just living with some people right now." "Well, what's your phone number?" I said, "I don't have a phone." And then he goes, "Well, who are the people that we can call?" I said, "Man, I don't know their number either." He goes, "Well, you don't know nothing, do you?" And I think he thought I was just kind of trying to avert it. So they all of a sudden they just tear through the car and they're looking through the car. And one of the officers goes, "Are you homeless?" And because my car is probably $1,000 car, is It looked like somebody had dragged the side of the car up against a rail and just rode it for about 10 miles up against a guardrail. That's kind of how it looked on the side. And and so he was just asking, "Are you homeless?" I said, "No, I'm not homeless. I live with somebody, but I kind of hang out in my car a lot." And he saw somebody saw a Bible in there because I didn't have nothing on me. He goes, "Well, he does have a Bible here." And so they had the Bible, and they didn't find nothing. He said, "We don't see anything stolen here." So they went to the head security guy. He was there by now. Everybody's out here. It's nighttime. Um, they're out there, and I'm just standing there wondering if I'm going to go to jail. And all of a sudden, they kind of circled up, and one police officer comes back to me. He says, "Buddy, if we ever see you here again, we are taking you straight to jail." I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hear you. I hear you, brother." I said, "You won't see me again here." He said, "Don't ever think about it. Don't ever set foot on this property again." I was like, "Yes, sir." Got in my car and I left. And so I was very thankful to God that He had got me out of that. I think God knew my heart, And so I say all that because I want to say this, that about a month ago, I felt like the Lord had impressed on me to kind of stop doing these Tuesday nights and to stop doing it. And I've been struggling with that because I was like, it's just because I put a lot of energy and thought into Tuesdays, no matter if it's because it was me and Isaac for a long time. And it was like I could have been speaking to a million people. I did the best I could every time. And I still feel that way, even though there's a few on here every night. I still feel that way. And it's never really bothered me. But I've recently felt like the Lord's been telling me to move on. Like I'm climbing something, and the bottom of this thing I'm standing on is crumbling, and I have to take a step. And lately I've been seeing myself at the bottom of a mountain too, and I'm waiting to climb something. And so I was really struggling with it, and I prayed, and I've been praying a lot about it. And I called Isaac on Saturday, and we talked a lot about it. And Isaac gave me a really good thing to meditate on that could be a reason why I wanted to try to leave doing this. And I really welcomed it because I wanted everything to really make sure this was God. And I kind of took it to prayer. And we had went to a church this weekend. It was about an hour away, and I was there. And this was one of those wild Pentecostal type churches. I feel great anywhere, any church, any great. And these people are dancing and jumping around. My wife's having a great time. I'm just there, just kind of soaking it up and doing my best to kind of hang in there. And somebody had said a word over me. And when I had that word, as they told me that word, because there was just kind of prayer, how sometimes it gets into worship and stuff, and people are worshiping, and pastor will be kind of saying stuff, and then people kind of be giving words to each other on the side, and that's kind of what happened. Somebody was giving me a word, and I heard the word, and the pastor said something as that was happening. And I just knew that God was telling me to move on, like that I needed to, for whatever reason, I don't know. It's not like I have anything planned or anything, but to move on from doing these things on Tuesday night. And Isaac had a dream yesterday, I think he sent to me, where it was a message I was sending out to everyone. And it had like an emoji of a king's crown on it. And when I knew that, it was like God like saying, okay, this message is what I'm giving you, it like confirmed almost even more than I already knew. And so I just want to say for you guys if it's been on here, and I appreciate it. And I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully, the Lord allows me to do some type of ministry. I know I'm making videos, but maybe that's going to disappear too. I don't know. Because the main thing all we can do is try to be obedient to the Lord, even if it doesn't seem right and the right thing at the thing. But it's almost better to just do what He wants you to. It's like it says, obedience is better than sacrifice. And so, just wanted to share that. Didn't have anything else other than that, and just want to say what a blessing it's been. There's been some Bible studies. I know, like I told Isaac, that one Samson one that I did, I spent every waking moment meditating on that. It was one of I just couldn't stop meditating on that story. If I wasn't doing something with my family, if I was by myself, I was thinking about that Bible study, and I was so caught up in the story of Samson. And when that finished, I felt, I'll never forget, I felt like, man, how do I move on from here? Because I put so much into that, and I think that's what pastors do every week. They just put every ounce of them to a minute. And I did that for all the other ones, but ever since the beginning of May, the Lord has kind of done that. It's been less and less, and to where I think, I just want to be all in like I used to be. I was always preparing for the Super Bowl. That was like my mindset. Like Tom Brady, he always said that he prepared in practice. In any type of thing he was doing, he always prepared like it was a Super Bowl. And that was me. I always prepared like it was my Super Bowl, like every moment. And I just, what a blessing it was. I realized that I'm not the best. Sometimes you think maybe you're better at something, and then when you start doing it, you realize you're not that good at it. And I think I realized that a lot, that I'm not as good as I thought I would be. And so maybe it's a time of, I don't know what it is. And maybe you guys can be praying for me that the Lord still use me in some area, and just kind of lift me up during this time. Right now, I'm just staying at home, taking care of my son. And if you haven't heard, in like past Bible fellowships, my wife just got a promotion as a director of a school, so we're really happy about that. That was a huge blessing. And so, but yeah, that's all I wanted to share. I just wanted to kind of get that and share that with everyone.